we're definitely being careful about making sure that the promises we make are promises that we can keep. And we are honest about the fact that because the Conservatives have crashed the economy and driven the public finances into a complete catastrophe, there are good Labour things that we would want to do that we can't be certain we'd be able to do in the first term of a Labour government. And it is part of reassuring the voters, actually, that we can be trusted with the money.
Labour's pretty buoyed up, but how do they now face the challenge of persuading voters to take them over the line fully and back them at the general election for a majority government? We're joined now by Labour's Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. Thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Good morning. I was going to talk about the coronation as well. I thought it was brilliant.
Were you there?
Well, since you asked, Adam, yes, I was, which is, I can tell you, not an entirely comfortable position when not every MP could attend. So they had representatives from all of the main parties. And so I'm sure I'm not going to be entirely popular in the tea room tomorrow when we're talking about what we saw. But it was magnificent. And one thing I did want to just share, because I think people can see for themselves the pomp, the pageantry, the music, all those things that I think we do so well in Britain. But one of the nice things yesterday was, as well as doing the odd bit of celeb spotting, I had a direct line of sight to Lionel Richie, now you ask, was actually talking to people from a really wide range of backgrounds who were invited specifically because of their community service, their public service, what they do for others. And that was really lovely. And I thought was one of the things that made what was already a special day even more special. And of course, people talk about that experience for the rest of their lives. So I thought it was a really great day.
Different opinions about the monarchy, of course, on the left. We put you down as a monarchist, can we?
You can. I do disagree with the Republican movement, but respectfully support their right to protest. It is a legitimate point of view, though not one I agree with. And I genuinely think that the soft power of the monarchy and the 300 million people who tuned in worldwide, as well as that feeling people get on royal visits or going to a garden party, is something that you just wouldn't get with an elected head of state, however much I respect those countries that have a different system, and those people in our own country have a different point of view. But let's talk about the local election results, because we did really well.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the local election results. Always pleased to hear what you thought about the coronation, of course. But on the question of local elections, the first thing that Keir Starmer did on Friday morning was to go to Kent and say Labour is on course for a majority government. Was that wise, bearing in mind that every analyst from Michael Thrasher and Colin Rawlings to John Curtis say you're not, on the basis of these results, on course for a majority government? At best, you would be a minority government or in a coalition.
Well, to be fair, their analysis is based on Thursday night's election results, which
that's what everyone was talking about.
It's not in and of themselves a prediction of the outcome of the next general election. And from Labour, the best is yet to come. We made huge progress in every corner of England. In places where we did even better than we expected to do this time round. And we were able to do that because we've been so ruthlessly focused on not just the places where we need to win, but the issues that really matter to people. So whether it's cutting the cost of living with the windfall tax on the big oil and gas companies, delivering the biggest expansion of
But you're not there yet, are you? You're not there yet.
I don't mind saying we're confident, but we're not complacent. And that's
well, you are. It sounds complacent to say we're on course for majority government when actually probably the Liberal Democrats had a better night than Labour. And, you've got to persuade voters to come across to you, but, you're sitting there with your leader telling everyone that it's a job done.
No, I think it's important for the Labour Party to project some confidence and to show people that change is possible. Because if there's a 5-word slogan that united voters wherever I campaigned in these elections, whether it was down in Medway or in Swindon in the south, or whether it was up in Erewash and Mansfield and Darlington in the north of England and in the Midlands, it's time for a change. People do want to see change, and it's important that we show voters that change is now possible with a Labour government in a way that
but the point is, time for a change is not the same as time for Labour, is it?
Well, I think that people have voted with their feet in these elections to achieve Labour breakthroughs in places that people would not have predicted in 2019. But we're not complacent. We're really not complacent. We know there's more work to do. And we know that and that's why, this month, Keir Starmer's going to be announcing Labour's big health mission, not just to cut waiting lists, but to make sure we've got an NHS and social care system that's fit for the future. That will be followed in short order by Labour's big mission to improve educational opportunities for young people in our country, where the gap between kids from the wealthiest and poorest backgrounds has widened under the Conservatives. We've done an awful lot under Keir's leadership to change the Labour Party so that we can change the country, to reassure the voters that on the economy, law and order, national security, which have been weaknesses for Labour since we left government, that Labour is on the right side of those issues. And of course, at our heart, as it always is with Labour, a mission to drive real justice and fairness in our country, which is desperately missing. I mean, there's one woman I spoke to in Mansfield who I thought really epitomised the two big issues that are facing our country at the moment. She is someone who's waiting 18 months for a hip operation at the same time as she's taking herself out to work all the hours she can at a local supermarket. And yet she told me, in these terms, I still don't have enough money to do my grocery shopping at the supermarket that I work in with a 10% staff discount. And Rishi Sunak had nothing to say to that woman, and millions of people like her who are working hard but waiting longer, finding it difficult to make ends meet. And that's why, with Labour focused on those issues, we were able to win back support. And the Prime Minister has lost a lot of support to Labour and other parties. In fact, the Conservative message after these elections seems to be two things. One is we didn't just lose to Labour, we lost to everyone, which is hardly an achievement. But secondly, Rishi Sunak just hasn't said anything at all to acknowledge why his party lost over 1,000 seats, even though 4 years ago, Theresa May lost a huge number of seats too.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, Wes Streeting, can I just jump in? You're talking a lot about a message for change. You're talking about fairness and about fundamental differences in the way society works. But we've spoken to you on this programme before, obviously about health, but about other things too, about strikes. And actually, Labour is not promising to offer people huge pay rises in the public sector. You're not offering to hike the amount of money spent on the NHS, for example, which is one of the ways that you could potentially cut waiting times. A lot of the things that you talk about to us when it comes to the NHS, but also more broadly, are long-term things that Labour wants to change. They won't happen quickly. And people's expectation when they hear that message of change is that things are going to be different. You can't promise them that, can you?
Well, I think we can. I mean, with the windfall tax on oil and gas companies, if the government was to adopt Labour's plan, they could cut bills for people now and improve the cost of living, but they're refusing to because they've put themselves on the side of the big oil and gas companies.
But for example, some of those
windfall profits of war.
Some of those big ideas, like university tuition fees, for example, things that Labour has gone out to the country and said to people, look, we're going to really change the way your life feels. You're rowing back on those. And even in conversations around pay, you're very careful. You say, well, the public finances are tight, things are difficult, we can't make big promises. Actually, what you're offering is not that far outside of what the government is offering people right now, is it?
Well, we're definitely being careful about making sure that the promises we make are promises that we can keep. And we are honest about the fact that because the Conservatives have crashed the economy and driven the public finances into a complete catastrophe, there are good Labour things that we would want to do that we can't be certain we'd be able to do in the first term of a Labour government. And it is part of reassuring the voters, actually, that we can be trusted with the money. We're saying our manifesto will be fully costed, fully funded. And when I talk about cutting bills through the windfall tax or the biggest expansion of NHS staff in history funded by abolishing the non-dom tax status, we have that formulation of what we would do and how we would pay for it. And that's how our next manifesto will work. But when people see that manifesto, I think they will see real change for Britain. I think people in England were voting for real change on Thursday night. What we're not going to do is go into the next election with a manifesto full of wishful thinking that lets the voters down after the election, because we've seen in the past with the Liberal Democrats and Coalition, for example, where that led them. We're not going to make that mistake.
Wes Streeting, thank you very much indeed.